Kevin McCarthy announces his bid to be the Speaker of the House coming up, and a shudder runs up my spine because I am not a fan of Kevin McCarthy, but we'll talk about that, what that means, and what that could mean for the future of the country. In other news, the attacks between Trump and DeSantis continue, so we'll go over some of why this is happening, why this is getting promoted, and what I actually think is the actual motive behind this. And there is fault on both sides. I'm not going to come back out and say one side is wrong, one side is right, and one side is left, and one side is out, up, down, etc. There is some strategy on both sides of this, but we'll go over some of that and what that means and where we go from there. Don't Run Joe, a progressive group, launches an anti-Biden 2024 campaign, so we'll talk about that and what that means. And speaking of Biden, the student loan forgiveness scheme has been struck down by a federal judge. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to post-midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Man, who would have thought that it would have taken 4 days to get even just 80% of the vote counted in Arizona? I have some theories about that. I think some of them I'm not going to be able to say on YouTube. I'm not going to lie. I think I've been dancing around the line and possibly over it a few times throughout these past few days here, based on the fact that it's YouTube, it's Google. I am probably going to get my YouTube channel shut down. I was thinking about that last night too, and I realized the fact that Google likes to change the rules on a moment's notice, but then retroactively enforce them. So if you say something that was within the rules at one point, but they changed the rules, like election denialism or something like that, which I do think is going to come. If Katie Hobbs winds up taking Arizona, I think that rule is going to come. You'll have election denialism, and even before Katie Hobbs won, they'll go back through and they'll reprocess all your videos from before then, especially if you're in news and politics, and they'll say, "Oh, well, you said that Kari Lake shouldn't have conceded on election night. Well, you must be a dangerous misinformation artist, so we're going to have to go shut your channel down or give you a strike," or, well, and with me being on my third strike right now, yeah, it's going to be interesting in the way that this goes, and I do think that there's going to be some big government stuff here that's got their fingers in this, so we'll be talking about that. We will be talking about, we've got the election on deck, we've got the speakership, which, again, with doing all the election analyses for the past few days, I've not been able to get to some of the other news. It's just been a solid wall of election analyses. Wow, I can really talk this morning. But, we've got the Elon news, we've got the student debt news, we've got the Trump feud. I haven't got to the Trump feud yet, which, of course, is the media trying to put him back up into the spotlight so they can cover up the fact that, Biden's student loan grift got canceled here. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about a myriad of other things. There's some memes, there's some fun here, plus we'll be going over the live chat today. I sat up last night and wrote down the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat here, And all the names here are going to get read this morning at the end of the show. And it's going to come with a special thank you. And we'll go over some of what you're saying in the live chat today as well. My reward and my special thank you for you guys coming out here and chatting in the live chat, since as a news program I don't typically go through this while we're on the air. So with that, we've got a lot of stuff to go over here on Contemporary. Let's get into it. Let's get started. But before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out Overruled with KTZed, Tweets by Brit over on Twitter if you're looking for an entertaining live feed of what's happening in the news and culture. Mr. Behavior if you like video games and video game design. He goes through while he's designing a video game and does it on the air for you guys, so that's pretty cool. And of course, PJ Patriot and the No Gimmicks podcast. Wonderful programming to help bring you news and culture from the common man for the common man, which has been my dream. I see so many of these anchors, so many of these culture writers, so many of people in the culture war who wear suits that cost more than our houses, and really honestly, I don't care for that. I think that you should be able to get news and commentary from people who have had to make some of the same decisions you have. So, with that, we get into the news, we get started, we look at the finance to start for the morning here, and that is going to be with the Dow to begin. Looking at the Dow, it spent the entire day up 1,200 points. It was a fairly steady up 1,200 points, closing up at 1,270 up for the day. This coming on the heels of what they're considering to be good inflation news, and I did debunk some of that while we were on, I was on Twitter yesterday. I did debunk some of that because I reminded everybody, and I went up and I looked up the number, and the inflation for October of 2021 was 6.7. So this 7.7, because it's a year-over-year measure, is on top of the 6.7 that it was the year before. So any slowdown that you're going to start to see, any of that is going to be a slowdown coming because, hey, at some point here, we're inflating so fast that it's going to start catching up. So, and yeah, we might even start to see some 6s and 5s, but these, when we get into next year, but those 6s and 5s are going to be on top of the 8.5, 9.1, 9.5s that we saw this year. So we'll be talking about that as we continue to go along. Probably by that point we'll be on an afternoon show, but I'll still be talking about the finance then, so that's what we see coming for that. The Bitcoin continues to be on sale, sub 20,000 yet again. It's improved somewhat here. The low today got down to just about 16,800 US dollars. It is currently sitting at 17,459 US dollars and 48 US cents. That is down 91 US dollars and 60 US cents, or about 0.5% on the day. So that's what we see coming off of that. Coming out to the 5 days, so we can see what happened throughout the day yesterday. It looks like it was a fairly significant climb, and then a less significant climb before it dropped back out and brought itself back down to the sub 17,000 mark. So with that, we will continue to watch and see what is happening on the extreme short term of our economy as people start to wonder whether or not they can start to put something in a savings that's not backed by the US dollar, even though Bitcoin is kind of backed by the US dollar, but something that could hopefully appreciate faster than a savings account would, versus who's going to have to be going and pulling cash to go get diapers, food, gas, milk, basic supplies, and etc. for that. So that's what we will continue to watch and see what happens with that. Looking at the gas prices around the Madison area, and it does look like those are actually on a downswing slightly. Obviously, we're not going to see the 91 cents that we saw back in the summer of 2020, but the Quick Trip on the far west side is out down to 350. The Quick Trip on the east side is up to 370, so a little bit of a change between the two of those. The one on the Isthmus is also at 370. The BP on the Beltline is at 379. The BP on the north side is at 360. So a little bit of a change throughout here. Some of it's going up. Most of it is either going down or holding steady. Your local gas prices may reflect differently, But looking at a specific set of trending gas stations all in the same area over time gives us an idea of what the trends in local areas will be doing. So consult with your local stations and see what we have there. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. From Investors Business Daily, Dow soars 1,200 points on inflation report. Why the market rally has room to run. From Ed Carson. The Dow rose modestly Friday morning, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq. The stock market rally surged Thursday following a cooler than expected CPI inflation report, with the Dow Jones running up 1,198 points. Headline and core price gains were lower than expected, bolstering the case for a slower Fed rate hikes. You'll be sorry. Treasury yields and the dollar plunged. If inflation continues to ease, I still don't see where it's easing yet at this point, considering that we're 7.7 on top of 6.7. The Fed could choose to end the rate hikes sooner than the Fed chief Jerome Powell suggested last week. A lot of the big moves were in beaten down stocks: Apple, Microsoft, Google parent Alphabet, Facebook parent Meta, Amazon, and Tesla were all big winners on Thursday, but Microsoft was the only one to move above the 50-day line. Nvidia, which has a higher market cap than Meta stock now, spiked after already reclaiming the 50-day line, but still needs a lot of work. Many crashing cloud software stocks boasted double-digit gains Thursday. Digital Turbine erupted for a 61% gain following earnings, but that's not even a 2-month high. Still, investors should be definitely considering adding more exposure and being looking for stocks setting up. I can't give official financial advice, but I would be cautious about that, especially until we see what is going to happen with the House. Now, why I could see a case for getting ready to go back and starting to eyeball things up, maybe not buying just yet, but deciding to, is one of the big drivers for the inflation rate is the government spending. As much as the mainstream media does not want you to believe that, the government spending over the last 2 years is probably the biggest driver of inflation. Right now, once you fire hose money into an economy, the more dollars you have, the less of a share of GDP that it is. And real GDP, not just what's represented in the dollars that you're inflating currently. The more dollar bills that you have, the less they're worth as they go. The less in service, the less in actual raw goods, in raw product, etc. If they stop the fire hose of spending and even bring us to the edge of default on the national debt, trying to actually get a balanced budget, or, miraculously just stop the federal spending altogether, or at least stop the new spending, that will bring some of the inflation rate down and ease off and let investors and new businesses know what it is that they're going to be looking at coming up for the next 2 years. So there's definitely an argument to be made. However, on the other side of things, there is going to be a major push to try to force a left-wing government that is able to spend and spend and spend and spend and spend somewhere in the next 2 years. So that is going to be something to be cautious about. The stock market is a long-term game, so we will see what happens with that. There weren't any actionable stocks Thursday, however, but Global Foundries, Enphase Energy, Griffin, Builders First Source, and General Motors all flash various buy signals. General Motors was added to Swing Trader, and it was Thursday's IBD stock of the day. Enphase Energy is on the IBD leaderboard watch list and the IBD 50 list on the futures. Dow futures rose 0.4 versus fair value, the S&P rose 0.4, and the Nasdaq climbed 0.6. The bond market will be closed on Friday for Veterans Day. U.S. stock markets will open as usual. Happy Veterans Day, everyone. Crude oil prices jumped 3%. Copper rose nearly 3%. The U.S. dollar continued to fall after plunging over the past week. Beijing slightly relaxed COVID curves despite reporting the most COVID cases in over a year. China's new leaders urged more targeted, decisive restrictions to control the spread. Certain restrictions on inbound passengers were reduced. All this comes amid social media chatter that China would substantially ease zero COVID policies. Bitcoin got above 18,000 at one point on Thursday after crashing to a 2-year low below 16,000 on Wednesday afternoon, but it's currently modestly above 17,000. Crypto lender BlockFi said Thursday night that it was pausing withdrawals in the wake of the FTX nearing collapse earlier this year. FTX reached a deal to acquire BlockFi. I didn't see a story about KFC. Put it in the Discord. But that's what we see coming off of finance for the day. Under the midterm circumstances, we are suspending the second finance article and looking in right to the election results. So we are on the governor's page right now. The governorships are a little changed, although it looks like the Democrats clinched another governor's seat, bringing us to 23 to 24 across the nation. Arizona is still in the too close to call range, with now 82% reporting 4 days after the fact. Lake trails Hobbs by 1.4%. But there's still definitely enough outstanding votes to make up that gap. I don't know what the recount laws are for Arizona, but I do think that this is going to be enough to trigger a recount. However, and I point this out again, Hobbs is going to be in charge of that recount. I said this on Wednesday already, right after the midterms, that Katie Hobbs, and I said the same thing about Brian Kemp back in 2018. As the Secretary of State, he should have recused himself from Secretary of State duties, and Hobbs should have done so as well. In both instances, both of them should have walked away from what it is that they are, what they're doing. So we will see what's happening with that. Nevada, looks like that is a very, very comfortable lead here. I don't think that Steve Sisolak has enough to come back. I don't know why they're not calling this one, because with 90% reporting on an 800-person race, I would not say that this one's too close to call yet, but we'll continue to watch and see what happens here. Alaska, trying to decide. Does look like this has shifted over, and this is going to be possibly a GOP governorship with Mike Dunleavy taking the lead over Les Garba, so we'll see what happens with that. Bringing ourselves back up to the Senate. We have come down to 46 to 48, and I think that's where we're going to sit until all the votes get counted. Now, from the looks of everything, if everything goes the way that it was going when they sent Georgia into a runoff, the status quo will be maintained. We will be looking at a 50-50 split with Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker. Again, with that being said, now we come back and we look at this and wonder. Nevada and Alaska are obviously going to go to the right. Arizona looks like it's likely going to go out to the left. Georgia's going to be the one in play. And if Herschel Walker can manage to squeak it by in just the squeakeriest of squeakers after the runoff, then that will be the 51-seat majority for the GOP, putting the government in a dead gridlock. Something I'm actually looking forward to, looking into the House race and Colorado, which seems to be on everybody's mind right now. House race at large. The Republicans have extended their grip of power to 211. Democrats have extended up to 192. It does look like at this point, on the slimmest of slim margins, the GOP is going to take the House. It's not going to be the red wave, it's not going to be a major blowout, but it looks like at the slimmest of margins, that's where it's going to be, which is still a good thing, because that means the end of the January 6th committee. That means the end of some of the excess spending. That means a possible showdown for what's going to be happening with the national debt, the default on that, keeping the government open, short-term omnibus bill. Wow, I cannot form a coherent thought this morning. I feel like Joe Biden right now. Short-term continuing resolutions to keep the government open, which I don't know why people think that's still a good thing, but there are a lot of things to go with that, and we will see what's happening with that. I do want to bring ourselves into Colorado and the race that's on everybody's mind, because Lauren Boebert has pulled a 0.4% lead over opponent Adam Frisch, with 99% reporting. It does look like this is going to go into an automatic recount. Some people were reporting yesterday, and I was asking some of the questions, that the threshold for automatic state paid recount is 0.5%. So this is going to be one that extends for quite a while, but even a congratulatory note is in order for Miss Boebert. As we were looking down at the end. And now, I do question how loyal, how actually into the GOP Miss Boebert is. She's another one of those like Marjorie Taylor Greene that says the right thing the right way at the right time. But with that being said, despite all the opposition that was coming off of her, if we just take her at face value as what she presents herself as, then this is a person who was targeted by the machine in a vicious fashion, who came back from double-digit percentage point losses on election night to come out to the narrowest of leads, with every piece of the media stacked against her. So if she is what she claims to be, then there is some congratulations in order. Definitely. Just to see where the comeback was off that. I would still like to see her win, with all said and done, by one vote, just because I think that would stick it to the people that are screaming about her. But we are going to have to sit and watch this recount, most likely, as we get to the final vote counting for Colorado District 3. Let's read into the news and see what's going on with this. First, a little bit of memery for you. Women posting their L's online. Posting a screenshot from Stacey Abrams' Instagram. Little Miss, future governor of the great state of Georgia. This tweet aged poorly. I was kind of hoping to get this in before KTZed had to run for a meeting, since she is herself in Georgia. What do you think? Do you think this is the face of a future governor of Georgia? Although I will say this. She's young enough. And she is getting up there, but she's young enough that she may launch another bid again. Third time's the charm, right? I don't know. We'll see what's happening with that and where this goes. Abrams, like Beto, and I said this about Beto on election night, and I can say this about Abrams now. If either one of those were smart and they did have the intent on living on the government teat forever, they would go back to the districts that they ran in. Beto in the Houston area, I believe. Is he Houston or El Paso? I can't remember. He's on one of the coastal sides of Texas. I think he was representative from Houston, but Beto would go back to Houston if he was smart and go run for his old representative seat. And honestly, I don't know if he would even make that at this point after losing in statewide races twice. But they apparently do love their Beto in Houston, so I would sit down, I would take my lumps and say, okay, I can't go back and win a statewide race and represent Houston until he retires, mostly because we don't have term limits. As far as Abrams go, I would do the same thing. Go back down into the Atlanta district, into the Atlanta inner city district, and run for that, represent Atlanta to the U.S. government. And call it a day, because again, it's been shown twice now that you cannot win in a statewide race. So that's what we have off that. And a little bit of a coat posting, I think. Seth Abramson, who is another one of these blue checks that gets spammed into your feed because this is a safe blue check mark. Seth Abramson is a New York Times, a former newspaper, best-selling author, lawyer, journalist, poet, PhD, political historian, analyses on CNN, BBC, CBS, and more at SethAbramson.substack.com. Representative of Folio Literary, so basically he's a left-wing activist going to left-wing news sources. But he is saying here, America owes a debt of gratitude it can never repay to Rep. Elaine Luria of Virginia, who courageously served on the House January 6th committee, despite facing a tough re-election race that she ultimately lost narrowly. Will you please retweet so we can thank her here? What is it that we say in cases like this? Oops. I screwed up the production value of this. Producer Pepe, you're fired. Screwed up again. Yeah, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this one. Mostly because A, I'm not in her district, and B, the heavily produced January 6th committee hearings that were forced into prime time, so they could be forced into our living rooms to the point, and I've said this before, and it was almost like they were going to strap us into our easy chairs and tape our eyes open so we could sit down and watch the January 6th hearings. I'm glad all that's over. And I think most of you are too, because it was pointless. It really was pointless at the end of the day on everything that we're seeing here. So, yes, I'm glad this woman lost her seat. Jermaine Mitchell says most people on that committee won't have a job after January 3rd. So, well, wish Miss Luria a fond goodbye. Alright, let's move into some of the news out here, because McCarthy, now seeing what the makeup is going to be in the Congress, has made an announcement here. And NPR is reporting Kevin McCarthy has announced his bid for House Speaker. This is from Dustin Jones, and make sure you hit that donate button, because NPR needs our money, comrade, to tell you how much better communism can be than that evil capitalism. So be capitalistic, give them your money. And you mean our money, comrade, because it's the government's money, no matter what. And let them tell you how to be a simple progressive. Do whatever the government tells you to. And complicity is our strength. NPR. Never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, in a letter to his caucus on Wednesday, officially announced his intention to run for Speaker of the House. I'm running to serve as Speaker of the People's House and humbly ask for your support, McCarthy said in a letter obtained by NPR. Literally anybody other than Kevin McCarthy, who, like Ron Johnson, is another person who has no political ideology other than the fact that he puts an R up next to his name and begs people from just outside of Los Angeles to come back and put him into office because of how bad Los Angeles is. The thing with Kevin McCarthy is, as I mentioned before, he is like Ron Johnson. He will change his ideology based on whatever platform of the Republican Party will give him the most power, and we really don't know what his actual political belief is. If the evangelocons are the ones that are currently in power in the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy is an evangelocon. If the war pigs, the Bushites, are the ones that are currently in power, Kevin McCarthy becomes the biggest advocate for killing all them dang Muslims down in the Middle East. If MAGA is in power, and war is a dirty word for the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy hates war and will bend the knee to Donald Trump. So, with that, that's what we see coming off of that. Republicans are expected to pick up enough seats to gain control of the House of Representatives, but as results continue to pour in, it's clear they will not have the major gains that they previously hoped to receive. Even so, McCarthy, who is currently the House Minority Leader, was expected to run for top House leadership position, and no one is currently challenging the California congressman for the post. Somebody, anybody, please challenge him. Anybody, somebody. The internal vote inside the GOP conference is expected next week, but the full House doesn't vote until early January at the start of the new Congress. Also Wednesday, House Republican Whip Steve Scalise sent a letter to his colleagues announcing his bid for the House Majority Leader. Scalise said that he would work with House Committee chairs to hold Democrats and Biden admin accountable for what he called damage they caused to the House of Representatives and the rest of the country. So, it's going to be a lot of investigations, a lot of taxpayer dollars pouring into investigations. I really wish they would all just go home. Maybe go in and write a law so they can say that they're doing something, let it get vetoed, and gridlock the government. Because when the federal government can't do anything, J. Edgar is a happy guy. It's the same with the Wisconsin government. As much as I would have liked to see Evers gone because he can exercise his executive order pen and is very, very good at it. As much as we see for that, I am glad that we have a Republican Congress and a Democrat governor who will veto anything that the Republican Congress does. Because, well, when the government can't do anything, I'm still a happy guy. But, I mean, come on. Anybody but McCarthy. You can do way better than that. But that's what we have for that. From CNN. McCarthy moves quickly to secure a potential speakership, and hard right group weighs a long shot challenge. From Melanie Zanona and Manu Raju. I didn't pre-read this, so I don't know who this is going to be. Also, we can listen to outgoing representative and butthurt specialist Adam Kinzinger and see what he has to say about this as well. Kevin McCarthy is moving swiftly to lock down the votes to claim the Speaker's gavel as a hard-right faction of his conference discusses whether to mount a long-shot challenge to complicate his bid and force concessions in the process, according to multiple GOP sources. Excuse me. I want to see who it is. But McCarthy's ascension to the speakership will be determined in large part by the size of a potential GOP majority. McCarthy maintains a narrow majority, then the pro-Trump House Freedom Caucus could stand in the way of its leadership ambitions. CNN has not yet projected a Republican takeover of the chamber. A source familiar with the House Freedom Caucus deliberations told CNN Wednesday morning that there are around 24 current and incoming members who are willing to vote against McCarthy if he doesn't offer them concessions. They're actively discussing putting up a nominal challenger to face McCarthy. Do they say who? McCarthy, who sent a letter to the conference on Wednesday declaring his bid for the speakership and asking members for their support, spoke with some potential GOP holdouts behind closed doors throughout the day, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, the controversial conservative who was booted from her committee assignments by Democrats, and a number of Republicans over her past incendiary rhetoric. Greene has pushed for a spot on the powerful House Oversight Committee in a GOP majority. Leaving McCarthy's office, Greene would not say if she'd get what she's been seeking. No comment, Greene said when asked if she'd support McCarthy for the speaker. Do they say who? Matt Gaetz, they're not saying that they're going to put Matt Gaetz up, but he is in here. So it doesn't look like they're going to say who. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if the far-right America First caucus does throw out their challenger, I think it's going to be Biggs. Among them, he's been in the Congress the longest. And he's got the most controversial profile of the people who would be eligible for it. After he did the anime video that everybody freaked the F out about. Which would be interesting. I know that they tried to do the same thing with with Nancy Pelosi and the House Progressive Caucus trying to get her booted out, but there was enough of a majority there that Pelosi could still take the gavel. It would be interesting. You know, the worst part is McCarthy almost got to be the Speaker of the House based on the fact that the House Progressive Caucus wouldn't say whether or not they would vote for Nancy Pelosi. She almost lost because her own members intended to tank her. So that's what we'll see off that. Let's listen to what Kinzinger had to say about Trump and McCarthy.
So, Congressman, it's unclear, obviously, who will ultimately win control of Congress. What is clear is that there was no red wave. Do you think Republican leaders are reassessing the role that Donald Trump has in the future of the party? Because it seems like this is an opportunity. If they are ever going to do that, this is an opportunity to do that.
Well, I hope so. I was here on January 7th, basically thinking that this was the time to reassess whether or not Donald Trump was the future of the party. I think, the question that remains is, so Donald Trump is going to throw Kevin McCarthy under the bus. I'm just put that down in red right now and underline it. The MAGA base is going to throw this on Kevin McCarthy. The question is, does the rest of the Republicans have the courage to stand up to Trump, or do they once again acquiesce to him? Because we all know him. He's not going to take the blame for this, at least in his own mind. This is certainly a rejection of the MAGA base. It's also a huge message that candidate quality matters. And I think in Wisconsin, look, this is a message to Democrats. I think a moderate Democrat would have crushed Ron Johnson in Wisconsin because he is one of the more disliked Republican senators. Close race, but I think a moderate could have done that.
Let's just talk about this. I guess President
Adam Kinzinger wants you to go back and only vote for the boring, milquetoast, neocon warmongers who will sit down and cower in fear anytime you call them a racist. All right, let's do some more analysis of the midterms here from NBC News. Trump ally Lauren Boebert is locked in an unexpectedly tight race for her House seat. From Zoe Richards. Lauren Boebert has found herself in a surprisingly close race for re-election as control of the House remains uncertain. As of Thursday night, the staunch ally of former President Trump was narrowly defeated, leading Democrat challenger Adam Frisch 164-51 to 159-315, with 98% of the vote counted. Earlier in the day, Boebert was trailing Frisch, a businessman who previously served on the Aspen City Council. And a few people saying that he is an out-of-touch Aspen billionaire. I don't know enough about him to say that because, well, most of the focus was always on Boebert throughout this race and not Frisch, because this was more of a vote against Boebert than a vote for the Democrat challenger. The nonpartisan Cook Political Research report has rated the district as solidly Republican ahead of Tuesday's election. Trump won the district twice, capturing 53.1% of the vote in 2016 and 52.9% 4 years later. Hang tight, keep the faith, Boebert wrote on Facebook Wednesday as she trailed her opponent. Boebert, a first-term lawmaker, was 33 when she defeated five-term incumbent Scott Tipton in the 2020 GOP primary in the general. She defeated Democrat Dianne Mitch Bush with 51.4% of the vote. So it does look like this has always been a very, very tight race. Chuck Todd reporting on this one here. Let's read a little bit more of this and then we'll check in and see what F. Chuck Todd had to say. Frisch, meanwhile, told supporters that the race was incredibly close in a tweet on Thursday. Every vote matters in this incredibly close race, and thousands of votes remain in Pueblo County and from military and overseas voters remain, and a considerable number of curable ballots remain as well, he wrote. Honk honk. Under Colorado law, a recount is required if the differences between the top two vote getters is less than or equal to 0.5% of the highest vote cast in the election contest. Let's listen to what F. Chuck Todd has to say.
So these are the uncalled races. The Arizona race is something that's just like the Senate race here. We are simply waiting for a lot more ballots, if you will, before you can do any sort of characterizing. Let me give you a taste here of these California races. The Katie Porter one, look, we don't even have 60% of the vote in. So even though that looks close, I don't want to characterize anything there just yet. Let me show you Colorado 3 because we know a lot of folks are very interested in the Lauren Boebert race. She has pulled to a 794 vote lead. Adam Frisch put out a statement today saying we got to make sure we got all the military ballots counted for and all this. So this could be a week or so before we have any idea who finally wins that. And at a margin like that, that smells like recount territory. Colorado 8 would have to be a must-win for Democrats if they are going to figure out how to get enough here. You could see 134 votes separate then, but again, just 87% reporting. These Nevada races, Democrats feel good about it, but again, just 86% reporting, so we got to wait there. We take you to some of the New York race that were still uncalled. There's a nearly 4,000 vote difference here in the 22nd. There, Republicans leading there. Republicans did obviously really well in New York State. Some Democrats pinning the blame more on Kathy Hochul than anybody else there. Oregon races are another case where we are simply waiting for more vote. Remember, this is an all-male state, so again, with that much missing, we are not going to characterize. Washington 8 is another situation where we are just waiting for a lot more vote to come in. But this is a district that Democrats expect to hold, and given that Patty Murray has a double-digit lead, this is the swingiest district one would assume that's going to happen there. And I believe I can take you over. I want to stay in Washington State because here's another one. If Democrats somehow got this majority, it would be because they knocked off people like Lauren Boebert and they knocked off people like Joe Kent. And you remember who Joe Kent was. He was the Trump-backed primary challenger of sorts to Jamie Herrera Butler, an impeacher, a Republican who voted to impeach Trump. Anyway, this was the Democrat that ended up in the race. It's a very Republican district. She just may pull this off. So,
all right, so that's what he has to say about this. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm willing to bet that this is going to come into a recount, and then, you know, we get all the military ballots and the curable ballots, which the fact that he's bringing that up in that tight of a race tells me that there may be some honk with that. But we'll watch and see. Moving on to Arizona, some video with that. The thing with CNN that's really getting me here is they do get some of the better reporting here, but they've been, especially with the midterm side of things, they've been doing less written reporting and more just putting a video out and having people come back and watch this. I don't know if it's because they don't want people like me sitting here and reading their stuff on air, but we can listen to what it is that what they have to say here. Would Kari Lake accept a loss? Reporter who tracked her campaign answers. Let's listen.
The governor's race in Arizona is also still too close to call. Democrat Katie Hobbs leads Republican candidate Kari Lake by just 13,000 votes this morning, but a quarter of all ballots still have not been tallied. Let's talk about this with National Political Enterprise reporter for the Washington Post, Ruby Kramer, who's not only been on the campaign trail with Kari Lake, interviewed her a number of times, but also wrote, I think, hands down, the best, most insightful, eye-opening profile of her. Agreed. It was fantastic. Yeah. Caitlin and I were talking a lot about it.
High praise.
So, okay, you've been in touch with Kari Lake's campaign since Tuesday. What are they saying?
A little bit. Tuesday night, radio silence. I think the margin was so wide that I think people in the room, at least at the election night party where they were, supposed to be celebrating this big red wave blowout victory, were feeling a little spooked. By Wednesday or by late Tuesday, something seems to have shifted. The word that I got back inside her campaign was they feel amazing. And it was sort of back to that very brash, very confident posture that we've come to know from Kari Lake basically at all points. Yeah.
One thing, of course, that we've all been talking about here is what the results are going to actually look like, but also the questions of whether or not she's going to dispute them. She's already been raising some unfounded concerns so far about it. What is your sense, given how closely you followed her around, her husband around, you know the way they tick based on this reporting, what do you think could happen there?
I think one important thing to understand about Kari Lake, and it's something we've seen from the moment she got in this race last summer, more than a year ago, is that election denialism is fundamental to the campaign apparatus that she has built. And it's fundamental in an operational sense in what she talks about on the campaign. It's also fundamental stylistically. So it's sort of the linchpin or the vehicle in which she's able to express loyalty to Donald Trump. It is the vehicle through which she's able to stage a lot of these confrontations she has with the press. And as you know, she picks fights with reporters at every opportunity and then videotapes them, puts them online, and gins up this huge online following on social media. So it's also the vehicle for her to create online support. So I think it's worth asking, does Kari Lake, the campaign, the candidate, exist without this kind of fundamental election denialism thing? It was sort of there from the beginning. So that's on my mind as now we wait to see what happens in this race. If she loses, does she concede? I think Republicans in the state don't know her to be a kind of candidate who would do that. If she wins, I think back to her Republican primary election this summer where she won that race. It took a while, but she did eventually win. And when she came out in front of cameras the next day to announce her victory, she said, "We won because we outvoted the fraud."
All right, so a few things with that. And as far as Lake goes, one of the things that I do want to point out with what she said, because we outvoted the fraud. No, you didn't. They were pushing you up to the front here because they thought that you would be easier to beat. They could paint a target on the MAGA election denier candidate and pull the Democrats out in force, which does seem to be the story of this election. I know that Ben Shapiro likes to say, well, okay, gang, it was Donald Trump's fault, and he was the one that did this, and it's all his candidates, and it's the fact that he's coming out here before that. No, that wasn't the case. It didn't help, but that was not the case. The case of this was, and we saw a lot of this here, Democrat groups dumping funding into MAGA candidates because they thought that they would be easier to beat at the ballot box. Now, as far as MAGA goes, I would like to see more people like that in the government, more people coming back up out of the private sector versus people who've been in the private sector for their entire lives. I would definitely like to see that. But the strategy that we're seeing coming here is the fact that they could go back and get a MAGA person nominated. And this is, I think, a little bit of the same with the Boebert race too, where they were able to get Lauren Boebert on a massive landslide to win her primary. And then they can trot her back out here and say, see, this is MAGA. Do you still want MAGA? You better get out there and vote. It was the vote against Donald Trump that is driving the most of what we're seeing on this right now. Would Kari Lake accept a loss? I don't think so. And given what happened with Maricopa County, I wouldn't either. For all of her faults, for all of us mocking the fact that Stacey Abrams never conceded, for like the first month of her not conceding, I was on her side for that. After the first month, that kind of got old, but for that first month, I'm like, no. You were fighting a battle against the Secretary of State, sitting. You've got every right to ask questions. I don't blame you for asking the question. I don't think that you are right in this particular case, but there's no fault in asking the question. Did something go wrong? Did the person who was sitting there as a Secretary of State, did he cause something like this? Because this is a government official who is overseeing the election. And at some point, and this is the same thing that I say to Trump, again, accepting the fact that he was probably not the cause of this, but at some point, you have to remember, how many times have I said it on Contemporary? You could go back, investigate to death every single election that happened in 2020. Every statewide race. You could sit back and investigate them to death and find out that you could overturn 24 states, because Biden won 26 states. I actually went through and did the count the other day. You could go back and overturn those 26 states and have a 535 vote win, landslide, for Donald Trump in 2020. after you investigate and investigate and investigate, and it won't change anything. Because the window to do that was closed because there's no constitutional mechanism to put the person who won the 535 votes at that point back into office. As soon as Joe Biden put his hand on the Bible and says, "Hey, I'll swear that I'm going to uphold the thing, man, and do so. So help me that guy up there that I'm going to be meeting pretty soon." As soon as he did that, there was nothing you could do. And I've often said, stop investigating. Stop focusing on 2020. If Kari Lake goes into December, January and says, "I challenge this. I want to go through the process. I want to find this," then that's fine. With Maricopa County, she's got that window to do so. I don't know if any judges will even take up the case, or if they'll just come out and say, "Oh, there was no standing. Get out of here, kid." That's definitely a possibility. But after Carrie Hobbs puts her hand on the Bible and swears to uphold her position, so help her God, there will be no mechanism under Arizona state constitution to change the outcome of that election. And at that point, you go forward. You try to run a better campaign coming out after that. And just see how badly Katie Hobbs screws up the state until then. We have got a video from the Maricopa Board of Supervisors here. Greg Price, Maricopa County Board of Supervisors Chairman. Why is it taking the amount of time that's taking to count the votes? First of all, it's very standard. This is how things work in Arizona. Let's listen.
62,000 last night, but not significantly more. So if you're interested in that, pay attention at the 8 o'clock hour. Why is it taking the amount of time it's taking? A lot of people are talking about this. Well, first of all, it's very standard. This is how things work in Arizona and have for decades. And this is due in part because of mail-in voting, and Recorder Richard's going to talk about that more. But I told this group that we anticipated 95 to 99% of the ballots to be counted by Friday. That's tomorrow. But I'm here to tell you the goalposts have changed. All right? 62,000.
Dude, there were some comments in here that I tend to agree with here. If you went into a fancy restaurant and ordered a grilled cheese sandwich and a cup of soup, at a non-peak time, there are a couple tables in there, and it still took you 45 minutes to get your grilled cheese and your cup of soup, and the manager came back out and told you, "Okay, well, you're just going to have to accept that because that's the way things work around here," that restaurant would be out of business within a month. Of course, one of the problems here is that it's government. Now, it's state government, so you can still vote with your feet and get the hell out of the state if that's how they're going to treat you. But all in all, you can't opt out of government. You can opt out of that restaurant that takes 45 minutes to get you your cup of soup and your grilled cheese sandwich. You can opt out of that, but you can't opt out of the government. I've tried. Get the hell out of here with this crap. From the Hill. Here are the counties to watch as Lake and Hobbs go down to the wire in Arizona. From Zach Schoenfield. Katie Hobbs and Kari Lake are separated by less than a percentage point in Arizona's too close to call gubernatorial race, and hundreds of thousands of votes are yet to be counted. Eyes are turning to county election officials as they parse through remaining ballots over the next few days, with an estimated 31% of the state's total votes yet to be counted as of Thursday morning. Hobbs still holds a slim lead of 0.6 percentage points, or roughly 13,000 votes in the race. The state Senate race has also not been called, although Mark Kelly leads Republican Blake Masters by a more comfortable 5-point margin, or roughly 95,000 votes. The vast majority of Arizona's 15 counties have yet to report some of their votes, according to the New York Times. estimates, but the two counties in particular will comprise a substantial share of the remaining ballots: Maricopa and Pima. Oh, Maricopa, you say? Honk, honk. Maricopa, which includes Phoenix and much of the surrounding area, typically gets outsized attention in the battleground states election because of its size, and this year is no difference. No, it gets outsized attention because this is 2 election cycles in a row that they've screwed up. That they've screwed the pooch. Pima County, which is located south of Maricopa, comprises about 14% of Arizona's population, making it the state's largest county by population. Yeah, listen to me. The New York Times estimates 63% of the vote in the county has been reported, a figure that trails every other county in the state. Pima County is historically Democrat-leaning. We just shifted here. Biden won the county by 19 points in 2020, and Hillary did so by 13 points 4 years earlier. Hobbs and Kelly were leading by 20 and 24 points in Pima as of Thursday morning, respectively. Officials in Pima said late Wednesday that they have yet to report the results of 159,570 ballots. Well, it's Friday. Get your crap together. The vast majority of these votes, about 156,000, include early ballots, and 2,400 are provisional. That always makes me ask a bunch of questions too. You know, you always get the Facebook and the Twitter posts that come around this time of year, every other year, that say, if you are at a polling place and the person says that you're not registered, or you can't be in here, or there's some reason, step back loudly and say into the middle of the room as loudly as you can, I request a provisional ballot, and they have to give you one, but make sure everybody in the room hears, because you want to shame them for trying to suppress anything. These people don't know how you're going to vote. Unless you are in a very, very small, tight-knit community, they have no reason to come up and stop you specifically and personally. For whatever reason. And I often do wonder if any of these provisional ballots are from outside of the county, where somebody says, well, why can't I come and vote? I don't have an ID. I shouldn't need an ID. All right, let's do some ballot measures that we've been waiting a week to talk about. From the Daily Wire, California and Vermont approved limitless abortion measures because they're California and Vermont. From Brandon Dre. Limitless abortion measures were overwhelmingly approved Tuesday in California and Vermont, paving the way to enshrine so-called reproductive rights for women into both state constitutions next year. In the aftermath of the U.S. Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade earlier this year, the decision to codify abortion went back to the states. The biggest battleground and the most significant war that's taking place in the nation is the demonic murder of the children in the womb, and California's leading the way, Calvary Chapel Chino Hills pastor Jack Hibbs told the Epoch Times. So far, approximately 3.5 million California voters have favored Prop 1, which changes the California Constitution to say that the state cannot deny or interfere with a person's so-called reproductive freedom, and that people have the fundamental right to choose to have an abortion or use contraceptives. Imagine having that in your Constitution. Yes, by the state we have the fundamental right to murder our children. Moloch would be pleased. Let's see. This is all California. Let's look at Vermont. Across the nation, Vermont codified abortion into the state's constitution. Again, imagine having that in your constitution. I will ask the question, by the way, Arvolt and Fanning as well, that as mods, I do have to wonder if you went to go back and try to ban somebody on a different platform on an instinct, and that's how you got the Restream bot blocked. Just out of curiosity. While lawmakers and pro-choice activist groups like the ACLU of Vermont, the League of Women Voters for Vermont, Alliance for a Better Vermont, and Planned Parenthood of Vermont Action Fund celebrated the measure's passage, opposers of the bill say it came as a surprise. Why? It's Vermont. Even your Republican governor is a Democrat. I'm not surprised by any of that in the least. But that's what we have for that. From the Oregonian, Oregon Live. Oregon passes Measure 114, one of the strictest gun control measures in the U.S. From Maxine Bernstein of the Oregonian/Oregon Live. Oregon voters passed one of the country's strictest gun control measures, a long-sought goal of the grassroots faith-based campaign. Partial returns tallied as of 11:15 p.m. showed Measure 114 leading 51% to 49%. Most of the votes left to be tallied were in Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties, all favoring or heavily favoring the measure. The measure will require Oregonians to obtain a permit to buy a gun after completing a firearm safety course and would ban the sale or transfer of magazines that hold more than 10 rounds of ammo. It also will close the so-called Charleston loophole by requiring state police to complete a full background check on buyers with permits before any gun sale or transfer. Under federal law now, firearms dealers can sell guns without a completed background check if the check takes longer than 3 business days. We began this historic campaign to save lives and with faith, and we remain hopeful as we wait for all the votes to be counted, said Reverend Mark Knutson, one of the chief petitioners, speaking earlier in the night to supporters gathered in Portland's Augustana Lutheran Church. So there are a few things with this. Obviously, of course, Oregon is going to try to outlaw guns as far as they can, while staying within the bounds of the Constitution so it doesn't get challenged and go to the Supreme Court. But, I mean, there are some other things that go with that. Now, as a business person, if I owned the gun store and the criminal background check came back and took more than 3 days to come back, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't know that I would sell the dude the gun. Because remember, the gun store owner, on top of federal law, still has the discretion as to whether or not they want to sell. And that's going to be important as we look into some of these things and we see what's happening with some of this. There is still the store's discretion. And I feel like if something took 3 days to come back, I would still exercise that discretion. Now, there are some people out there that probably wouldn't because they want to make the big sale and make the big bonus in their little gun store. That's fine. But one of the problems that I have with me being the one to sell that if it takes more than 3 days, and in Wisconsin you can, by the way, if your background check, they default to federal law. If it takes more than 3 days, your Wisconsin gun dealer can go back and still sell you the gun because federal law can still exercise his discretion, but, federal law won't stop them from selling the gun. My thing is this: if it takes longer than 3 days, if they're coming back to try to do something, if something is coming up or they're trying to verify something, I don't want to be the one whose face is on the news when some nut job goes and shoots up a gas station. And then the next thing we hear on the news is this guy was on the FBI watch list already and he bought the gun at J. Edgar's Fine Firearms Shop in redacted Wisconsin. I don't want to be that dude. Let's talk about the DeSantis feud, and we'll be skipping over and looking at some of these, but skipping over some of these as well. And by the way, if you are just lurking right now, get some last minute chats in the live chat here, because remember, I'm going to be reading this list of the people who chatted throughout the week this week. I did not count the election day live stream, by the way, so this is just the contemporary chatters for the morning show. And we'll be looking through some of your chat here as well, so looks like there's a big discussion as to how to fix the restream bot over on the YouTube side. DeSantis should be welcome. Trump press secretary won't say her ex-boss should help with the Georgia runoff. From Virginia Kruta. Former White House press secretary Kayleigh McEnany did not say that her ex-boss, former President Trump, should campaign for Senate candidate Herschel Walker ahead of his December runoff election. I'm going to say right now, even though I don't think that it necessarily it's a hard point right now. I would say under normal circumstances, after what happened with 2020, Trump should not go in and campaign for Herschel Walker, because he'll say things like, "Oh, the vote's rigged, and it's all this, and it's not going to matter anyway because they're just going to cheat and take it away, like they did with me, your favorite president." That possibility is always out there. But as far as what's happening with all of this, and as far as where we're going with this, if he does campaign, they're going to hammer him to the wall and remind everybody that this is Trump's handpicked candidate, and we need to turn out in numbers like we've never seen before to defeat Trump's handpicked candidate. And if he doesn't, the other news line of that is going to be, "Oh, well, Trump turned his back on his own handpicked candidate." So they're kind of in a catch-22 with that. Matthew Gertz reporting, Trump press secretary turned Fox host Kayleigh McEnany says Trump should put his campaign declaration on pause until after the Georgia Senate runoff. Pointedly does not recommend he go campaign for Walker, but says DeSantis should. Let's listen.
And that could go straight through the state of Georgia on December.
Does that include Trump?
I think he needs to put it on pause. Absolutely. Look, he'll make that decision. He'll make his own decision. But
does he go to
if
Georgia?
I'm advising any contender, DeSantis, Trump, whomever, no one announces 2024 until we get through December 6th.
Do you see the former president a need for him to go to Georgia?
I think we've got to make strategic calculations. Governor DeSantis, I think he should be welcome to the state given what happened last night. You got to look at the realities on the ground. And Herschel Walker, we've got to win the Senate. That's it, guys. Got to win the Senate.
All right, we'll move on. The Democrats first. That was like a pep talk.
Pep talk. Yeah. Hey, that's talking to the squad there.
So I guess we'll see what happens here now that the runoff has officially been declared, and see if the Orange Man comes up or the Florida Man comes up. From CNN, and this is The Point with Chris Cillizza, which means this is an op-ed. From Chris Cillizza, Donald Trump just sent Ron DeSantis a 2024 warning shot. They need a feud in this. Oh, they need a feud for this. On the day of the 2022 general election, Donald Trump sent a very clear message to Ron DeSantis. Stay out of the race or else. I would tell you things about him that wouldn't be very flattering. I know more about him than anybody, other than perhaps his wife. Trump said in an interview with Fox News Digital. Trump's rhetoric is the most open threat that he's made against DeSantis in recent weeks. At a rally in Pennsylvania over the weekend, Trump referred to DeSantis as Ron DeSanctimonious. The nickname came less than a month after Trump called it a big mistake when DeSantis endorsed Colorado Republican Senate nominee Joe O'Dea. O'Dea had previously told CNN's Dana Bash that he would actively oppose the former president if he ran for the White House in 2024. And it comes after Trump has repeatedly insisted that DeSantis would be unwise to run against him. If I faced him, I would beat him like I would beat everybody else. I'd beat him like a dog. A dog, I'm telling you. Trump told Yahoo Finance in October of last year of DeSantis, I think most people would drop out. I think he would drop out. That may be a bit of wishful thinking by Trump. DeSantis appears to be on the verge of a victory Tuesday over former Governor Charlie Crist. Yeah, well, we've seen that already, so that's done and over. He also avoided bowing and scraping to Trump. As so many other elected Republican officials have done, DeSantis did not seek Trump's endorsement in his 2022 campaign. So, I don't think this feud is real, and if it is, I do think that some of it is staged. Because this does put the attention on both of them. Now, as far as what this does and why this is being amplified, the Donald tends to take all the air out of the room. Which means that whatever happens behind closed doors, because especially with a narrow House majority, there's going to be some behind the doors dealing that nobody's going to pay attention to, because everybody's going to be glued to CNN and MSDNC and Fox and saying, what's happening in the feud? What's happening between Trump and DeSantis? Did he call him a loser? Did he say he was going to beat him like a dog? Did he say that he was a former president and a former loser? They're fighting. Oh, they're fighting. So I think a lot of this is astroturfed. Obviously the quotes are real. We can see the video of them, but a lot of what we're seeing here is very, very astroturfed, and we'll see what happens with this. My former representative and former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, getting in on this as well, which, I mean, I'll report on it because it happened, but because it's Paul Ryan, opinion discarded. Paul Ryan calls former President Trump a drag on our ticket. From Carolyn Reinwald. I'm going to tell you right now, within my lifetime, the Republican Party is going to be the party of warmongers and war pigs once again, and they're going to be led by Ron DeSantis. The day after Election Day, WISN 12 News caught up with former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, at an event in his hometown in Janesville. Ryan said he spent Tuesday night at home with his family watching the results on TV, which is a change from his usual location, which is up some lobbyist behind in Washington, D.C. Republicans didn't see that red wave like they were predicting, said WISN 12 reporter Carolyn Reinwald. Why do you think that is, and what kind of lessons do you think Republican leadership should be taking away from that? I think we're going to have to do a lot of soul searching and head scratching, looking through and parsing the numbers as to why we didn't perform as well as we'd have liked to, Ryan said. Ron got reelected. I'm happy to see that, which means that Ron will go back to his war pig roots, because that will be what gives him the most power in the party. It was a mixed blessing night, but we should have done better than we did. Ryan pointed at the former President Trump as one of the reasons why Republicans may not have performed as well as the polls. I think Trump's kind of a drag on our ticket. I think Donald Trump gives us problems politically. We lost the House, the Senate, the White House in 2 years when Trump was on the ballot or in office, Ryan said. I think we just have to have some Trump hangover. I think he's a drag on our office and on our races.
Election night looks a lot different.
I don't want to listen to Paul Ryan. Shut your mouth. But yeah, I mean, this is, and Arbolt said it best. I do think that that Paul Ryan is going to be, he's going to be the one. I hate to say this. I think that Paul Ryan will run again. If it comes right down to it. And Trump is out of the party and it goes back to being the old guard, I think he runs again. I don't know if he wins, but I think he runs again. From ABC, Trump takes aim at DeSantis, suggesting he's a 2024 rival. We actually have a video clip of this one that I do want to touch on here, so let's have a listen to that one. No, go back to the beginning, damn it.
It'll be great for the country. It's an honor to be here. They've done a fantastic job inside. I think that coffee close. but I think we're going to have a very big night, and it's going to be very exciting to watch.
Are you considering a run again? A big announcement you're teasing?
I think Tuesday will be a very exciting day for a lot of people, and I look forward to seeing you at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you, everybody. Yes, I did.
Did you vote for DeSantis? Yes, I did. Trump on Thursday escalated his criticism of DeSantis, suggesting he views DeSantis as a potential challenger in the 2024 presidential primary. In a lengthy statement echoed on his social media website, Truth Social, Trump jabbed at DeSantis as an average governor who benefited from great public relations. He also repeated the new derogatory name for DeSantis, Ron DeSanctimonious. In a statement, which also included characteristic complaints about his media coverage and repeated unfounded claims of election fraud because, he's like Cisco in the first episode of Deep Space Nine. Why do you exist here? As Cisco continually goes back when he's talking to the wormhole aliens, to the day that his wife died. Trump goes back to the day that he lost the 2020 election. Honk honk. In a statement, which included characteristic complaints, Trump touted himself as being a key endorser during the 2018 Florida gubernatorial primary when DeSantis ran against Adam Putnam for the GOP nomination. He was politically dead, Trump argued of DeSantis at the time, insisting that his support had been key to the primary win. And now, Ron DeSanctimonious is playing games. The fake news asks him if he's going to run for president if Trump runs in 24, and he says, I'm only focused on the governor's race. I'm not looking into the future. Well, in terms of loyalty and class, that's really not the right answer. Sources with direct knowledge of the matter have told ABC News that Trump is leaning towards announcing a third run for the White House, possibly as early as the week of November 14th. The former president has also been teasing a 2024 run at rallies across the country for several months. He said last week during an Iowa rally, in order to make our country successful and safe and glorious, I will very, very, very probably do it again. Get ready, that's all I'm telling you. Very soon, very soon. Trump said earlier this week that there will be a very big announcement on Thursday at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. Let's see. Because we're up on the clock here, I'm actually going to skip over the rest of the DeSantis stuff. Let me look at this one, though, quick. Because we do have some reactions to what's going on with this. From The Blaze, Trump irks conservatives, could be damaging to his political career by attacking DeSantis. From Alex Nitzberg. Former President Trump may be damaging himself politically by attacking Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican figure who has become enormously popular on the political right. Trump, who is widely expected to mount another White House bid, has been taking shots at the Sunshine State governor in addition to referring to him as Ron DeSanctimonious. Trump has threatened to dish unflattering information about DeSantis if the governor runs for the president. I think if he runs, he could hurt himself very badly. Let's see. Some on the right took issue with Trump's rant and were critical of the former president. This is exactly why you're bleeding extremely staunch supporters like me, Trump. The great governor has done nothing sanctimonious to deserve the super lame nickname or these lies about his much better than yours COVID policies. DeSantis 2024, said Storm Paglia of Town Hall. Why? Why do this, man? Town Hall's Matt Vespa tweeted about Trump's statement. I was genuinely excited to see a primary fight between these two. I think that's what would be best for the country. We'll touch on that in just a moment. Because I know that I've got a question about that in the live chat. I saw you, Caster. But apparently Trump is going to just embarrass himself and go down in flames. I'll be honest, it saddens me a little. Not how the Trump era should end, Jesse Kelly tweeted. If Trump is dumb enough to attack the guy every Republican in America is currently happy with, we'll talk about that in just a moment, too. The primary is already over. He's going to lose at least half his support to DeSantis overnight, he added in another tweet. So, with that, we'll touch back on that in just a moment. Let's get through a little bit more of this. From the New York Post. Don't Run Joe, progressive group launches anti-Biden 2024 campaign. From Victor Nava. A progressive group opposed to President Biden running for re-election in 2024 launched a campaign entitled Don't Run Joe on Wednesday, targeting Democrats in New Hampshire. Roots Action, a grassroots organization that supported Senator Bernie Sanders' 2016 and 2020 presidential campaigns, rolled out its anti-Biden digital ad campaigning one day after the midterms in the hopes of rallying people against a second Biden term. It's clear that Joe Biden should not be the party's presidential nominee in 2024, a campaign press release said on Wednesday. The Don't Run Joe campaign is using digital ads with messages that include, "We cannot risk losing in 2024. We shouldn't gamble on Joe Biden's low approval rating. Now is not the time for weak measures. We need solid leadership to keep Republicans out of the White House in 2024. We need strong leadership to defeat Republicans in 2024. Don't Run Joe. Give Democrats a fighting chance to organize resistance to another Biden presidential run." Why the fight with DeSantis? Why is it being elevated in the news? Because this exists. That is my simple answer as to why we're seeing this fight in the news right now. It's because this is happening. There is going to be a messy primary on the Democrat side because they know they will get absolutely beaten to death if they try to run the vegetable in chief again. They know it. I know it. You know it. But they need to have the focus off of this while they go back and change things out in the background, so they can continue to say they're a strong party. Almost comedy. Biden dismisses possible House GOP investigation of his family. From Hank Berrien. When a reporter asked President Biden on Wednesday about the possibility that the House of Representatives controlled by Republicans might investigate Biden's family, especially his son Hunter, Biden dismissively replied to such an effort would be, almost comedy, man. Republicans have made it clear that if they do take control of the House, that they want to launch a raft of investigations on day one into your handling of Afghanistan, the border. They want to look into some of your cabinet officials. They want to investigate you. They may even want to investigate your son. What's your message to Republicans who are considering investigating your family, and particularly your son Hunter's business dealings? Well, lots of luck in your senior year, as my coach used to say. Biden said derisively, adding, I think the American people will look at all that for what it is. It's just almost comedy, man. Well, we'll see. We're going to talk about... Let's see, what do I want to get to here before we get out of here today? The student loan thing, we're going to talk about that for just a bit. But then it is 9/11, so we are going to have to do live chat. Andrew Wortman, who is a super follower, Democrat strategist. I don't know why he is one of the people that's blue checked out, or not blue checked out, but spammed out in front of people. I don't follow this person, but yet he's always there in my timeline. But he's got this to say. Breaking! A federal judge in Texas has temporarily struck down Biden's student debt forgiveness program after a plaintiff filed a suit claiming it was unfair for people who didn't qualify. The kicker is the same plaintiff received almost $50,000 in PPP loan forgiveness. Because, as usual, they're going to try to push the PPP loans up in front of student loan forgiveness, forgetting the fact that the student loans did not have a forgiveness provision in them when you signed the master promissory note, but the PPP loan did. These are an apples to oranges comparison. They always have been. But this is coming because CNN, federal court strikes down Biden's student loan forgiveness program. From Katie Labosco. Now, this is not going to be a big thing for Joe Biden because he knew it was unlawful right from the beginning. He knew that he couldn't do that just on his own. Everybody knew that. Nancy Pelosi knew that. But he bought a bunch of votes for it. A federal judge in Texas has struck down President Biden's student loan forgiveness program, declaring it illegal. The lawsuit was filed by a conservative group, the Job Creators Network Foundation, in October on behalf of 2 borrowers who did not qualify for debt relief. Equal protection, man. Biden's program was already on hold due to a separate legal challenge. The Biden admin has argued that Congress has given the Secretary of Education the power to broadly discharge student loan debt in a 2003 law known as the HERO Act. The HEROES Act. Wow. We must be getting to that point where I've been talking for almost 2 hours straight because I'm starting to get over my mouth. But the Texas federal judge found the law does not provide the executive branch clear congressional authorization to create the student loan forgiveness program. The program is thus an unconstitutional exercise of Congress's legislative power and must be vacated. Wrote Judge Mark Pittman, who was nominated by then-President Trump. In this country, we are not ruled by an all-powerful executive with a pen and a phone, he continued, based. The Justice Department said Thursday that it would appeal the decision. The White House press secretary, Token Diversity Hire, said in a statement, "We strongly disagree with the district court's ruling that on our student debt relief program." For the 26 million borrowers who have already given the Department of Education the necessary information to be considered for debt relief, 16 million of whom have already been approved for the relief, the department will hold onto their information. Well, yeah, once you give it to the government, it's theirs. You never give it back, just like when you give it to Facebook. Your information is currency to both the government and the social media, social engineering programs. And what do we know about the first rule of acquisition? The first rule of acquisition states, Rom, what does it say? Once you have your money, you never give it back. The Biden admin has been banned from canceling any debt since the 8th Circuit put the administrative hold on the program on October 21st. Once again, I don't know that there was ever any appetite to do this. I look at something like this, and all that I see was a vote buying exercise. They knew they were going to get blocked, and they anticipated probably that they were going to get spanked in the midterms, even though that didn't wind up materializing. So the hope is that they could hold it out until after the election and say, hey man, it's just those evil Republicans that don't want you to have any relief. They want you to be in debt forever. Vote for me. So that is done and down, and with that, it is time for the live chat. You guys have been a little bit busy today, mostly talking technical issues on why people can't see what's going on with the Restream bot, but we do have some stuff to go over here today. So we'll start from the top, just in case things pop back out here. I'll go down probably about to the KTZed message here, and then we'll look in to see who chatted throughout the week. Ron Helton was here this morning. Good morning, J. Edgar and fellow Ed Heads. A. Gaines P. Good morning, Ed Heads, with the spiraled globe. Elizabeth Vike, first time chatter. Morning, everyone. I think I know who that is, but KTZed is here, just popping in to say hi. It was good hanging out Tuesday night. All right, let's look in and see what happened throughout the week. Monday, our top chatters were Horatius, Quest Fanning, Ron Helton, Arvolt, 24, A gains P, Seawall 728. Randy Crush Saga, Job for 9, and Harvey McLeod. Tuesday, our top chatters were Silent Caster, Quest Fanning, Horatius, A gains P, Ron Helton, Harvey McLeod, R Volt 24, Seawall 728, and Blind Fear. Wednesday gave us Ron Helton, Quest Fanning, R Volt 24, Harvey McLeod. I can't read my own handwriting. Like, does that say honey? Why does that say honey? No, it's Harvey. Harvey McLeod. Horatius, Major Victory, 80s Kid, and Yu Zhang Fong as we looked into the first night of post-election day coverage. Yesterday, our top chatters were Randy Crush Saga, Ron Helton, Izzy Busy, A gains P, R Volt 24, Horatius, 80s Kid, and Quest Fanning. Let's look at some more of what it is that you guys are saying on our side. R Volt 24 is here. R Volt says, since Ed is reading the chat today, if you didn't see the story about the KFC yesterday, you ought to look it up. Is it in the Discord? Did you put it in the Discord? You should always put it in the Discord because that's where I go first. Let's see, KFC. KFC. Oh, the Crystal Knock thing. I did see that briefly. I didn't look very far into it, but I did see that briefly. Apparently, from what I could understand, they weren't apologizing to the right people for their target demographic. Ron Helton says, oh crap, they're going to probably pay a fine, I bet. And he says, no, it's not possible for you to feel like Joe Biden. He feels nothing. He is soulless. KTZed had to take off for a meeting. Arvolt on the Stacey Abrams picture. Not Georgia, but it kind of looks like Ralph Northam. This one. 80s Kid is here. Says, I never got a notification today. I had to search for the stream. The site is pure AIDS now and it's getting worse. That's lame, but that's why we have other platforms. And I still can't see any comments. I might, and I know that I'm probably cutting out the morning show in a couple weeks in favor of an afternoon show because my work schedule is going to be changing. But I think to address some of what's happening here, I think I'm going to reset the video stream to what I have for the game stream. So we have the chat up in the corner. Because I mean, I've got the widget there to do it. And I do think at this point, especially if we are having the comments there, I think it'll work better. Quest Fanning is here. Still in total shock that the Democrats are still in power. Hi, we're the Democrats. We wreck the country. But vote for us, voters. Yes, more of that, please. Gaines is testing comments. Arvel. I had the same problem. I have a solution. Quest says, you can see the YouTube comments. I spent most of my time on DLive because I can actually see all the chat and it's less fluggy than Twitch. Also remember, switch from top chat to live chat. Apparently Arvold had the restream bot blocked the other day. Silent Caster's here. Get out of here, kid. Get out of here, kid. You're no good. Good old Marty McFly. You know what the difference is between a Chicago Bears fan and Marty McFly? Sorry, Chilaga. Eventually, Marty McFly stopped going back to 1985. Arvold says, for those who want to check, click your account icon, manage Google account, and go to people and sharing and check blocked. Soundcaster says, I'm here to tell you that I lied. Granted, it's not exactly a non-peak time. Yeah, that's true too. Randy's here. Arvold says, Trump attacking DeSantis before the gubernatorial election was terrible optics. I lost a lot of respect for Trump for that. Trump essentially stumped for the Dems. I'm not happy. Quest says he's feeling insecure, attacking Youngkin too. Poor form. Trump is doing the job of those who say he can't unite the party. That's true as well. I'm so far behind watching, playing 2x speed, but still far behind. Quest Bank says Freedom Caucus. I want Jordan for the spot. Massey would be better, but Jordan is more likely to win. I want Jordan to win because of the heads exploding. I don't particularly care for Jim Jordan, but I know the heads would explode if it was him. Arvold says, Paul Ryan calling it our ticket is the quiet part out loud. The old guard GOP doesn't want the grassroots populists. That's very true. Silent Caster says, do you think DeSantis is a war pig? I'm going to address this right now. And this may be off topic and we might have to jump off and take a pause from the live chat for just a moment. And talk about this because of the thing DeSantis. Now, I am not a DeSantis supporter. I posted on Twitter the other day that I think I might be the only person to the right of Joe Biden who is not a DeSantis supporter because he does have rockstar energy in that party right now. I'm not a conservative. That's part of it. I typically take the line of conservatives right now because they have the most feasible agenda of leaving me alone, and it's not a good one, but it's the most feasible of leaving me alone and staying out of my life. A lot of it's lip service. I understand that. But I've always said I will vote for whoever has the most intent to stay out of my life. Slow down the taxing, stop the federal investigations, and just leave me to go plant rose into my garden. And make sure that I don't need to depend on the government for anything. Right now, that is the Democrats. Or, I'm sorry, the Republicans that have that agenda. But as far as DeSantis goes, the first problem that I had with DeSantis, and the reason that I actually started looking into him and why I don't particularly care for him as a nominee for anything. Now, as far as Florida goes, if they want to elect Governor EO, that's their problem. But it was the EOs. He governed for the first probably 2 years of his governorship by executive order, just like Obama did. And I didn't like it when Obama did it. I didn't like it when Trump did it. I didn't like it when Bush did it. I am not a fan of EO. And yes, we've got the idea of, well, I can legislate the way that I want. I got a pen and a phone. Well, no, that's not how we do shit around here. Excuse my language. That's not how we do things around here by EO. That was what really got me off the DeSantis train to begin with. But now that I'm looking at what's happening with DeSantis and the fact that there is a coalescing of the current Republican Party behind DeSantis, like when I hated myself enough to listen to Shapiro the other day and heard him screaming about how much he hated Trump, like he'd been waiting to do, like it'd been building up inside of him for 4 years, when he could finally get out all the Trump hate at once, and his mind went straight to DeSantis. Paul Ryan, DeSantis is our party now. Cheney, DeSantis is our party now. The big problem that I have, and I don't know how DeSantis would govern as a war pig, but I know all the war pigs like him. That makes me nervous. And he's not coming from the outside either. That was one of the big ones, the big reasons that I got behind Trump the first time in 2016. I was a Fiorina fan before that. But when I got behind Trump in 2016, one of the things that really pulled me behind him is that he was from the outside, and we had no real indication as to how he would govern. we do have indication on what DeSantis would do as far as legislative. Again, as far as foreign policy, we don't know. But all the people that want us back in the Middle East to defend our greatest ally, Israel, really, really, really like Ron DeSantis. And he knows them from his time in the House of Representatives. So that's my feeling on DeSantis. And why I won't get behind him. I can't throw my support behind him. Even with the fact that, by the way, he eased off the EO thing. Because I know he was catching a lot of flack for that. That was kind of where I started to think that he was going to run for president in 2024. Is because he started getting criticism for his EOs and then they just kind of stopped. Because then my question is are you stopping for optics or did you realize that this was wrong? I don't know. I cannot do DeSantis. I cannot vote for him. I wouldn't vote for him in the primary. I wouldn't vote for him in the general. I would stay home that day if DeSantis was the Republican nominee against anybody from the current Democrat Party. Let's see. So that's my answer to that. Quest Fanning says, I hate the establishment neocon GOP, but we can't go alienating all the normies. It's fair. Trump seems to want to alienate half the GOP. Arvold says, I wonder if Trump is looking to split the party into a real MAGA party politically separate from the GOP. That's a possibility. Silentcaster says, I do think that Trump is doing things like becoming a vaccine salesman and endorsing Oz over McCormick and holding out on the second COVID bill, then signing it a few days before the end of the year. Not excited at all about him, and that's fair. I had a lot of problems with Trump. Most of mine came from the spending. About 90% of my problem with Trump came from the spending. Let's see. Gaines says, hashtag settle for Biden. They better kill Harris first. I disavow. Can't overlook a woman of color for the position, especially when she is next in line. It's her turn. Quest says, that would mirror intentionally doing what the far left woke agenda is recklessly, it seems unknowingly doing. Whichever breaks first will hand huge majorities to the intact legacy party. As in, if, for example, the DNC split first, the GOP would have years of hegemony. Caster says, here's the thing. The major factor Republicans didn't account for is the turnout. High turnout favors Dems with Google, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, all the low information trendy votes. Basically doing everything short of holding your hand and taking you to the polls, and in some cases they're actually doing that. Means high turnout and Dems have a huge advantage when all these low information voters are frothing at the mouth over abortion show up. Yeah, that's all true. They will continue to win as long as they're encouraging votes. I'm going to edit your comment here into more accurately what I see off of this. They will continue to win as long as they keep their fingers on the scale and can give countless billions of dollars worth of in-kind donation to free time, free labor, and free promotion that doesn't have to be reported to opensecrets.com. Arvold says, not to mention it's easier to hide fraudulent ballots in high turnout areas, even though there's no such thing as fraudulent ballots and widespread fraud is a myth. And Biden is the most popular president in history, 81 million votes, 10 scoops of ice cream, honk honk. Silentcaster would bet a lot of money Walker losing the runoff. Dems are going to show up in ridiculous numbers. That's actually because they've only got the one race to stump for, and they're already doing so. So that's I'm not opposed to that opinion. I think that's actually an apt comparison. Not to mention Walker's pretty subpar. Yeah. Arvold says, I don't know, Dems don't show up well in runoffs, but no one does. Very subpar. Who selected our best and brightest this year? Fetterman. Walker. Ron Johnson. I did like Tim Michaels. Silentcaster says the only way Walker even has a chance, and I mean a slim chance, is if Laxalt wins and Masters loses. Or Masters wins and Laxalt loses. Very long shot. Saw the ad buy money dump from Dems in the two 2020 runoffs in Georgia. Now they only have one to focus on. And yes, there's still, by the way, countless billions of dollars in secure.actblue.com for races that they knew they were going to lose and just held on anyway. Act Blue is a slush fund. You donate to one candidate, but you don't know where that money is actually going to end up. They gather it all up into a slush fund and they put it wherever they need it. And they can get by on campaign finance laws because of it. Honey McLeod. Yep. Quest Fanning says, I saw Josh Smith arguing that Oliver Chase would actually siphon off more votes from Warlock, what he said, but I think that was autocorrect. That Walker would have flat lost without the LP. That's fair, too, and I mean, I put the article up in the Porch Boys Discord because one of the things to look at with that is that this dude is a super, super left libertarian. Let me actually jump into the Porch Boys Discord and see if I can grab that and just show you. Yep, right there. Anarcho Mom tweeting out. Yes, the very pro-choice, pro-sex work, pro-legalization, and very gay Chase Oliver stole Republican votes in Georgia. And yes, this is Chase Oliver, the libertarian dumbass that stole votes from Herschel Walker. Preventing him from getting a decisive win. Could libertarians F off so the real conservatives can get crap done? Yeah, this is the guy that stole all the Republican votes. This guy right here. In deep, deep trad rural Georgia. Oh look, and while we have this up, the Lincoln Project is trending again. God, I can't stand those guys. Oh no, we had the Stacey Abrams tweet up. That's what we had up before. Arvel, the Back to the Future joke was good. Haven't heard that before. No pausing, no bathroom breaks. Back to work, slave. I skipped a tiny bit and up to speed. I know everyone was waiting with bated breath. E-I-E-I-O. Nice. Arvold says, yeah, we need Congress to rein in EOs, but they did that on purpose, I believe. Yeah, oh, absolutely. They absolutely did their EO thing on purpose because then, you know, they don't have to legislate and they don't have to go back to their districts and say, yeah, this thing that actually hurt you, yeah, we're responsible for this. It's just that president up there. Yeah, he doesn't need EOs now. He has supermajorities in both chambers. Gaines says, DeSantis is a basic statist. He loves to fly around Florida and visit different restaurants for lunch and post about the restaurant on social media, all on the taxpayer dime. Silentcaster says, Cheney has spoken out against DeSantis, which is good. His walker can walk. Quest says, if you act blue, is it just moping around the house all day? Yes, actually. I intentionally spell and speak Warnock as Warlock. He does advocate sacrifices to Moloch, even from his pulpit. That is some Warlock stuff. Oof. Silentcaster says, sorry, disconnected for a bit. Heard your DeSantis explanation, but not much beyond that. And with that, we're out of here. We're done. Well, it's been a week. It's been an intense week. You know, travel across the state to go secure some things for the future here, and you know, come back here, do the midterm stream, and a lot of stuff happening at work as well. This is very much been an interesting week. Kind of glad it's over, but I still have so much to get done and get ready to go. So 700 episodes. Yep. Yeah, we've been doing this for a while, and I do hope to continue this for a long, long time. Like I said, I don't want to retire. I want you guys to carry me out of this chair, to bury me. I sit on live stream, complaining about the news, and have my heart stop in the middle of the live stream. That's how I want to go out. I love doing this. So, let's get the outro music up here and let's head out of here. So, thanks everybody for a great week. Thanks everybody for 700 episodes too, by the way. A lot of you guys have been here right from the beginning. So, it's been a ride. It's been a trip. I'm very glad that we've been doing this for this long. It's something that, you know, when it comes down to when I move, it's going to be regrettable that I have to take a couple weeks off for this, because I don't know how I'm going to get the move and everything done and ready to go right away. And then the time change as well, because yeah, we'll be going on to an afternoon show, which is going to be weird, and also a little bit, I'm actually going to have to raise the quality of this a little bit, because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm going to be competing with a lot more people. Although the other end of that is, you know, that thing where I get the allergies and everything settles back into my sinuses while I'm sleeping, and then as soon as I start talking, it comes out. Well, doing an afternoon show, that's not going to be as much of a problem anymore. So we've got that. We've got a weekend coming up here. I've got a lot to work on, and a lot to work on at work today, because, well, we've got a big event going on there. So we'll be out of here. Thanks everybody again for chatting. Stick around if you are on the Twitch side for the raid, and we will see you next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.